After decades of research on elderly health, I realized many people don't weaken because of illness, but because they lose connection with their own bodies. We often avoid talking about physical pleasure in old age, yet it is a vital source of life energy, nurturing blood circulation, memory, hormones, and emotions. It's not aging itself that tires us, but gradually forgetting the sensation of being touched, being loved, and living fully in our own bodies. This video will address a sensitive but extremely important topic: how people over 60 can revive their vitality through physical connection and self-understanding. If you care about healthy aging, don't miss it. We often think that physical decline in older adults is an inevitable consequence of aging. Weak bones, poor memory, fatigue. But these signs often don't come from obvious diseases, rather from a subtler cause: the broken connection between people and physical pleasure. In middle and old age, many begin to give up behaviors that once brought bodily joy, from physical contact, warm hugs, to sex, or even self-pleasure. They don't give up because they don't need it anymore, but because society, stigma, and even themselves have made these needs inappropriate. Over time, they learn to turn off sensations, shutting down the parts of their bodies that once gave them vivid feelings. But modern medicine proves that physical pleasure, at any age, plays an important role in overall health. When people no longer touch themselves with love, no longer pay attention to touch, pleasure, or connection, the nervous system gradually slows, blood circulation weakens, hormone levels drop, and even the immune system weakens. In other words, when the body no longer lives in sensation, it begins to withdraw from life. That is why, in many cases, we see elderly people age quickly, not because of illness, but because they have lost their presence within their own bodies. This video is not just informational. It is to awaken something that has been asleep too long. Your body still needs connection, no matter how old you are. When it comes to elderly health, people usually think about diet, sleep, exercise, medication. But there is a less mentioned factor, which profoundly affects both body and mind: physical pleasure, intimacy, skin-to-skin contact, and even sexual life. For many, especially after 60, these are dismissed as luxuries. Society even tacitly creates shame when an older person talks about sex or personal satisfaction. But science does not agree with this silence. Studies show that simple acts like being hugged, touching skin, feeling pleasure or orgasm can stimulate the brain to produce oxytocin, endorphins, and dopamine, chemicals directly related to emotion, memory, immunity, and even longevity. Intimate behaviors also help maintain a healthy circulatory system, increase blood flow, improve blood pressure, and stabilize hormones like testosterone and estrogen, which are vital for maintaining muscle mass, mood, and vitality. Conversely, when the body is no longer touched or experiences pleasure, these critical biological systems begin to decline rapidly. The result is not only physical weakness, but also mental states prone to depression, anxiety, insomnia, and isolation. Physical pleasure, therefore, is not a temporary indulgence, but a natural, necessary, and healthy part of human life, even in old age. It not only brings comfort, but reminds the body, you are still alive, still feeling, and still deserve connection. One of the simplest yet most misunderstood and dismissed forms is self-pleasure, or masturbation. For many older adults, this is a sensitive subject, sometimes seen as shameful or improper. But if we put aside prejudice and look from a biological perspective, we clearly see masturbation after 60 is not just a need, it is a form of positive health care. When an older person practices healthy self-stimulation, they actively reactivate blood circulation, maintain nerve sensitivity, support the production of sex hormones like testosterone and estrogen, which decline sharply with age. This helps protect muscle mass, reduce osteoporosis risk, stabilize blood pressure, improve sleep, and even maintain memory. Furthermore, the release of endorphins and oxytocin during this process acts as a natural medicine to reduce stress, fight depression, and boost joy, extremely important for older adults who are prone to loneliness and feelings of being forgotten. Most importantly, self-pleasure helps maintain a positive connection with the body, reminding oneself of their worth and that they deserve to experience pleasure without relying on anyone else. Instead of avoiding it, we should see this as an essential part of an older person's self-care routine, as important as a healthy diet or regular exercise. Because sometimes just reconnecting with your own body gives you the chance to live more deeply, healthily, and fully every day. Although modern science has shown the clear benefits of physical pleasure and self-pleasure in older adults, the biggest barrier is not the body, it's perception. Many people over 60 carry false beliefs shaped by social stigma, traditional education, or personal shameful experiences. They believe, at this age, why even think about that? Desire belongs to youth. I'm old now, I have to accept it. Doing that is improper, shameful. These thoughts not only create guilt and shame, but also cause them to withdraw from their own bodies, neglect emotions, and disconnect from the most natural source of life energy. What is the result? Rigidity, not only in joints, but in the soul. They gradually lose interest in life, have less energy, are more prone to depression, and experience a clear decline in overall health without understanding why. In reality, the desire to be touched, loved, and feel is a lifelong biological need. There is no age when it expires. On the contrary, the older one gets, the more they need physical and emotional connection to maintain vitality both in heart and mind. Breaking these prejudices is the first and perhaps the most important step for older adults to reconnect with themselves. Not to turn back time, but to live according to true needs, unbound by fear and shame imposed by others. Once aware of the importance of physical pleasure and having overcome some psychological barriers, the question is, how to start again? Especially with a body past its prime, sensitive to aches, dryness, or slower reactions. The answer is a simple yet subtle method, a restorative approach, a step-by-step path helping older adults safely, gently, and respectfully reconnect with their bodies. The first step is preparation. Choose a private, warm space free from disturbances. You may use soft lighting, relaxing music, or a nourishing oil to create comfort. Next is relaxation. Before seeking pleasure, the body needs to loosen up. Take deep breaths. Feel each area without judgment. This is not a warm-up, but a message to the body. You are safe. You are accepted. Then comes gentle exploration. Instead of rushing stimulation, start with light touches, massages, or simply placing hands on often neglected areas, like chest, abdomen, thighs, neck. Let the body lead, don't force emotions. When sensations start returning, you may move to more focused stimulation, in your own way, rhythm. There is no right or wrong, only presence. Finally is integration. After finishing, don't get up immediately. Lie down, feel the afterglow in your body, and remember, you just did something good for yourself. This method requires no strength or performance, only gentleness and consistency. And in that simplicity, the body will slowly remember how to live fully again. Even when an older person has overcome prejudices and is ready to reconnect, restoring physical pleasure is still challenging. Because beyond social barriers, there are many internal obstacles they must face. First are wrong expectations. Many think they must feel excitement immediately or experience intense emotions like when young. When it doesn't happen, they get disappointed and blame themselves. But the aging body needs a different approach, slow, patient, and pressure-free. Second is inconsistency. Like exercise, if abandoned midway or done only occasionally, the body lacks time to adapt and recover. Stability, gentle repetition, and habit formation are the keys for sensations to return naturally. There are also deeper psychological barriers: guilt, fear of being discovered, worry about judgment, or pain recalling lost relationships. These feelings are real and can't be forced to overcome instantly, but it's important to face them with compassion. not avoidance or suppression. Therefore, reconnecting with physical pleasure after 60 is not just a bodily matter. It is a delicate journey requiring self-compassion, persistence, and deep acceptance. There is no standard to achieve. Everyone has their own rhythm, and all they need to carry is patience and love for their body at any age. One of the most common mistakes is thinking reconnecting with the body, especially in old age, is trying to hold on to youth. But the truth is not that. This is not a quest for youthfulness, but a journey to find oneself in a more experienced, quiet, and profound version. When an older person begins to rekindle bodily sensation and find forgotten pleasure, they don't just improve physical health. They reclaim mastery over their body, the right to feel, and the right to live fully at any stage of life. Many describe this feeling as a new source of vitality. They sleep better, have a more positive mood, improved memory, and even more confidence in daily interactions. But deeper than that, they feel whole again, not just as a parent, retiree, or grandparent, but as a living, feeling, desiring individual who deserves happiness. Physical connection, whether through a gentle touch, personal pleasure, or a moment of listening to one's body, can become a powerful catalyst to restore zest for life, enthusiasm, and inner peace. Old age does not mean the end. On the contrary, when connected properly, it can be a rebirth, where we live slower but deeper, weaker but wiser and freer than ever before. You don't need to become young again. You just need to come back to yourself. If you've reached the end of this journey, maybe somewhere inside you has begun to stir curiosity, empathy, or simply a recognition. I deserve to live fully, even now, even with gray hair and wrinkles. And that is the first step. You don't need to change everything immediately. No need to be perfect or young again. Just start small, slow, and gentle with yourself. Maybe one evening you spend 5 minutes breathing deeply and feeling your body. Maybe one time you dare to touch yourself without judgment. Or a moment you look in the mirror, not to find wrinkles, but to see a still vibrant, still valuable, still emotional human being. Don't let prejudice, silence, or shame imposed by society stop you from reaching what you deserve. Age does not make you less human, but if you allow it, it can make you live more deeply, meaningfully, and connected with yourself. Start again, from your own body, from sensations you thought were asleep. Be patient, be gentle, and believe. Old age is not the end of vitality. It is when you get to live most freely, truly, and fully. You have traveled a long journey in life. Now is the time to allow yourself to enjoy the most beautiful, private, and precious part of yourself. Start today.